Good afternoon, everybody. We're delighted to have you with us today. Thanks very much for joining us. It's great to see so many of you returning again, and would also like to welcome those who are joining for the first time. This is a regular slot that we do and introduce investors to investees, investees to investors, and the other way around, I guess, as well. And today we're launching 3 new campaigns on the Spark site, so we're very excited about that. All 3 are very different. But all 3 are very strong businesses with great potential, and it's and with more than anything else, that they've got a very strong management team, which is the first thing that we look for, obviously, in businesses that we have on the site. So we've got Net Feasa from County Kerry, an IoT device that's fixing a big problem in the global logistics chain. After that, we've got Waivlength from County Meath, a new social media platform that's preventing trolling and bullying by vetting users' ID with bank level KYC checking, know your client checking. And finally, we've got Frog Mobility from Dublin and Donegal/USA. It's an e-scooter company that's expanding rapidly across Europe, which is operated by a team that have already run and successfully exited an identical business in the US. So we're welcoming all 3 of those, and I'll introduce you to them in a second. But before I do that, I just wanted to tell you a few things. First of all, just a month ago or so, we released the 2022 Spark Top 100 Most Ambitious Companies. It was really well received, and we had brilliant feedback from it. It was a new way of showcasing new and up-and-coming businesses in Ireland, and I recommend you to have a quick look at it, and hopefully Fergal will put a link in the chat to that for you, and please click on it and go back to it later on if you would like to have a quick flick through it. It's really interesting reading. Also, we have just closed 2 rounds for 2 companies that were on the platform recently. What's the Score was one, and Access Earth was the other. Access Earth raised over 160,000 in the time that it was on the platform, and What's the Score raised almost 240,000. So we're delighted that those are up and running, and the money is going to be channeled through to them very, very shortly when the legals are done. So that's another great tick in the box for those 2 guys. Also, don't forget, unlike other investment vehicles, investing in companies through Spark is with 0 commission. Investors pay nothing at all. There are no fees and no commission that investors pay. So all the money that you invest will go into the businesses and into the investments that you're investing in. So there we go. So that's a quick update on where we are. So let's get started. So today we'll be doing things slightly differently. Normally we'd have a Q&A session on the platform, and we'd invite you to actually put questions into the Q&A box. But today, because it's the launch of these businesses, we thought we'd have a longer presentation from each of them. So we're going to give each of the guys 15, 16 minutes to give their presentations. And we'll invite you to put questions, if you have any, onto the discussion on the discussion tab on the actual platform. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, please ask them there. Or alternatively, we'll be doing further webinars with them, and we'll have more of the usual scenario where you can actually ask questions on the day as well. So if you'd like that, that's absolutely fine. So there we go. So first up, we've got Net Feasa. Mike, are you there? Can you put your camera on if you're there, please? This is Mike Fitzgerald, sitting down in Dingle Harbour there, as you can see in the background. So a quick intro to Mike. Mike commenced his career as a software engineer at Ericsson in 1991 and transferred into sales and marketing, where he became Ericsson's Director of Business Unit for China. He was vice president of 2 NASDAQ-quoted companies, and he carried out a management buyout in 1999 for Microcellular Systems. Sorry, lost my place here. So he co-founded the indigenous Irish software company Alta Bridge in 2002, and between 2000 and 2015 has been a founding investor or a board member of several companies, including New Bay, AMCS Group, Mobinets, Polyplon, and Blue Ocean Wireless. He graduated from UCC in 1998 in computers and maths, And he's also a graduate of the Stanford University Graduate Business School in 2008. In 2009, he was named EY's Irish Entrepreneur of the Year. And in 2012, he was named Technology Pioneer at the World Economic Forum. So that's a nice intro for you there, Mike. Hopefully that all rings true. So Net Feasa has developed a revolutionary way of tracking shipping containers around the globe, helping to save shipping companies multiple millions of dollars per annum. It already has revenues of over 300,000. It's projecting revenues of 7 million in year 3. And Net Feasa is now live on the site and has already received investments of over 96,000 and has already reached its 28% of its target. The pre-money valuation is 4.7 million. The business is not EWIS because it's already exceeded the investment threshold to qualify as an EWIS company. In other words, the level of investment into the business to date is greater than that which is allowed for EWIS, which is obviously a great thing that money has already been channeled into the business. So, Mike, you're very welcome, and thanks for joining us today. So, if you'd like to share your screen and get your presentation started, we'll get straight into it.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just bring that up there now.
Sure.
Okay, is that good? You can see that?
Yeah, we can see it. So I'll switch off my camera and away you go.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. So Mike Fitzgerald, founder of Net Feasa, going straight into it. Net Feasa was approached about 5 years ago to look at the Internet of Things. So when we talk about the Internet of Things, most people talk about sensors and connecting everything left on Earth. But the part they forget about is that it's a wireless network. And it's a very special wireless network. So in order to understand it, what we did was we deployed a few networks and we worked closely with the Port of Cork, where we had a great harbor master down there, and he was able to help us test and trial devices in challenging kind of environments. The peculiar thing about the Internet of Things is that it's not about large amounts of data. It's about very small pieces of data that you get back from key things. So we knew that transportation was going to be the big opportunity. We just didn't know where to go. So half of what we did was consultancy and half of what we did was invest in R&D to figure out where would we find revenue, where would we find an opportunity that wasn't there. So the first thing we discovered was that as we knew containers weren't tracked, refrigerated containers are monitored, they are tracked, and a lot of companies that were in that space are trying to repurpose that big box, that big, huge monitoring device to put it onto a container, one of what we call the dry containers, and connect that back to a network. We saw that as not being feasible. The business case doesn't add up. You've got to go out and change batteries. These containers are all over the world. So what we did was we decided that we would change the way we looked at the sensor and change the way we looked at the network. And in order to do that, we had to discover where we were going to go and what we were going to do within the supply chain. So we said that rather than put a little sensor like a little mobile phone onto a container and bring that back to a standard network, why don't we look at what the container industry is doing, the movement of the containers? So instead of saying every hour, we'll take back a GPS reading and send this back across the network and burn up the battery, what we'll do is we'll try to make it really sensitive to only getting key information back at every milestone as we move along. So artificial intelligence has become quite common, but the great thing is the algorithms that we use are all defined. We have huge amounts of information available to us to be able to take this data and do smart things with it. So what we did was we sat down with all of the experts, with the shipping companies, with the ports, with the different shipping companies, and we said to them, where are the key points in the supply chain where we should get data from a container? We can't afford to send back reckless information from these containers. So we went to the train lines, the carriages, we went to the ships, the ports, and obviously the trucks. So to kind of give you an understanding how complex this is, all the trucks in the world are tracked. So you'd assume that we wouldn't have to worry about that. But the difficulty is that in North America alone, there's 900,000 trucking companies. And each of those has an average of 6 or less trucks. Now there's 990,000 trucking companies, but there's only 90,000 big ones. It's the 900,000 trucking companies that kind of would be the majority of your typical norm. And the same for like Western Europe and for Asia. You don't have a dominant trucking company that has one system feeding the information back. So then you end up in North America with 900,000 dispatchers. So the question is, how do they get the information on the location of the container up into the supply chain. From our perspective, if every container is tracked, then we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about most of the supply chain because we have a live container. And with $14 trillion, 90% of all of our goods that move across the world inside in these boxes, it's inevitable. And not only is it inevitable, but just last month, the largest refrigeration company in the world that's a partner of ours has said they will no longer ship containers. They will no longer put out containers into the market, refrigerated containers that are not tracked. They must be turned on. It's imperative that this information is getting back. So as we move towards the dry container, more and more are getting connected. The winner will have to make sure that we don't run around changing batteries. So we started bringing this data back from all of these different parts of the supply chain into what we call our knowledge network. And the idea would be that we would make the smartest decisions as we move through the supply chain, so we only message at the key stages. So this is really your typical supply chain. On the left, you have the factory working endlessly to get their product out the door in minimal time to keep the cost down. And all of a sudden, they're waiting for a truck. Now, COVID's a bit of an exception, but I mean, we're seeing situations where some factories are ordering 3 trucks to turn up at the same time to ensure that one gets there. But typically speaking, they're just looking for one truck to turn up to pick up the container. The unknown as to when that truck is going to come, where the container is, where the truck and how far away it is, it's kind of reckless. If you've just done just in time, you've got your product to the door in minimal time, you really need to be a little bit more prudent in how that supply chain links up. So we solve that problem because they know where the container is at all times. And as we go down, whether it's on the truck to the train or whether it's the train to the port, and we get to the port, again, we're taking the key data at each step. So we don't need to continue on tracking on a truck. We just need to make sure the event of going onto the truck is captured. So this is where our, what we call data silos, little bundles of data that's very important all around the supply chain, we gather that, we bring all of that back into one central silo. So we did this in order to keep our battery life at an absolute minimum, because we estimate that about 76% of the movement of a container, we don't need most of that data, but all the key points along this supply chain we do. So what we've actually found out was that we can make sure that the battery lasts for years and years longer than our competitors, because we're only doing the most important event type messaging. And we're staying away from like GPS and satellite because that kills the battery. We only go there as an emergency. We only go to the battery as an emergency because what we're doing is leaning on energy harvesting. So working with Tyndall and Cork for the last couple of years, we've become experts in the ability to just use whatever data type or whatever energy we have around us, typically solar because it's the most powerful, bring that in and just use that all the time and only go to the battery in an emergency. The remarkable thing about this research was when we finished and we realized we could get to years and years beyond the competitors, we suddenly realized we had all this data that we were typically using for the battery optimization, but it's now become hugely powerful because we're the only ones that has all of that data from the factory all the way to the distribution channels. So we've gathered everything that's spread out across all these different silos into one location. So then you look at what kind of a market opportunity is this? And we're saying, right, if there's 30 million dry containers scattered across the world, they will all be connected. And the leaders, and we would expect to be one of those top 5 leaders in this market. If we looked at just $1 per container a month, or $2 or $3, it's multiples of tens of millions of dollars per month that's available to a company like Net Feasa. And now that we have our battery and our use of battery optimized to the point where we're going to be more efficient than the others, and we designed a sensor from the ground up with a Silicon Valley company that we've outsourced this to, we're now in a position to test and trial with the biggest operators in the world and get multiples of those tens of millions of dollars per month. So that's the total addressable market has been estimated to be around $1.75 billion US per year. Again, always recurring. The business model, well, luckily we're there in the sense that we have existing strong partners. People like one of the top shipping companies in the world, Matson, we have put IoT wireless networks on all their fleet across the Pacific. So today they're sailing back and forth to Japan, China with our networks on board. Carrier, the largest refrigeration company in the world, they've announced that we're a strategic partner in the area of wireless IoT networks. Orbcomm is a great partner of ours for the years, and they're a leader in tracking technology. And Panasonic, we're old friends of Panasonic. We're always there to help them, to advise them in the context of where they're going with next generation wireless networks. So we typically work through partners, and the business model is always SaaS. It's always as a service. We just look for so much per month. You know, we have a celebration in the company when we get to $10,000 a month recurring revenue. We've passed 20,000 a month recurring revenue. You know, the next celebration will be 50,000 a month recurring revenue. We have got to that point where we're getting over the, you know, we're about $250,000 this year in recurring revenue. And we're, as we said, the wireless IoT networks that we put out on ships, that was to make us a player. It's very much synergistic with what we're doing. When you put devices on containers, the world is covered by the Vodafones of the world, but the ships aren't. So it's quite a complementary way of getting into a shipping company, work with them on their ships, and then get the order for the containers on the back of it. Again, you've seen that we work with one of the top 10 consumer electronic companies in the world, and that keeps us sharp. That keeps us pushing our roadmap and pushing our understanding of all generations of wireless networks and making it contemporary. The big breakthrough for us from a value perspective was that Comreg, our Irish regulator, saw what we were doing, came, dragged us through the coals, tried to understand what we were doing in our business model, and then they announced that they were rewarding us a license, what's called an extraterritorial network license. And that's a very progressive, futuristic move by the Irish government to say they see SMEs in Ireland, they see them trying to make it in the world, so they issued us with a license, and that license comes with numbers. So we effectively have 15 million unique numbers for our sensors on our wireless network coming back to our network that we're able to put out into the world. From marketing sales strategy, we're very indirect. We don't like to do things directly. We always work with partners. You know, next Tuesday, one of the biggest container shipping companies in the world in Asia, they're coming in over Zoom to our NOC here in Dingle, and we have all of our equipment live. We have test and trial licenses, which is another great Irish government initiative where we can actually bring networks live, which you couldn't do in that part of Asia where they are. And we're going to show them all of this working, and they're going to be able to see, you know, exactly, you know, where we are, what our value proposition is, and then therefore we go to trial with them. We do that with our local partner out there, and we spend months and months training up our local partners to be able to do that. On the contract manufacturing side, you know, we have a Silicon Valley company coming out with our prototypes. They're due within weeks. We're putting them out on container ships. The contract manufacturing side is huge. All these big players need to know that we can deliver large volume. So we've engaged one of the leading Irish contract manufacturing professionals. He spent his years abroad, and we were lucky to get our hands on him. He's not giving his name out at the moment, but he's from one of the big companies, and he's an expert in this particular area, working with us on the strategy of how we turn up the volume from 12 to 12,000, you know, to 1.2 million. That strategy is well underway. And on the data analytics side, we are already after proving to our existing customers that the machine learning algorithms that we're using on their data has been hugely valuable. We've been able to show them the movement of containers from the apron onto the ship and back onto the pier again. And that movement using machine learning algorithms has been hugely valuable to them. On the senior team side, Ian Walter and I, this is our fourth company since about 1999, where we've worked in this particular vertical of wireless networks in things like the maritime world or the aviation world. So we do a very twin up thing. We're pretty much the same position in the sense that he's very technical on the roadmap side. I'm very commercial, so we work hand in hand together. Ruth Concannon is pretty much the boss. Nothing gets signed, nothing happens in the company without Ruth overseeing it. Every major program that we have, she oversees it, and she steers us down the road where our products are delivered on time and our customers are extremely happy. Ian O'Shea is the consummate CTO. He's typical operator, Telefonica O2 background. He is very much the data guy. He's the guy who coined the phrase that what we're doing is we're giving our customers, you know, the shipping world, a new tool set with the data that we're bringing in from all of those key points on the supply chain. Paul and I have worked in Ericsson for years. We were out in China deploying the first networks. Paul Gagan was the head of Ericsson 5G in Shanghai for Northeast Asia for Ericsson for years, and he's just come in, and it's handy. He's got the Kupla Fuckle, as they say from a Chinese perspective, which is very helpful with our new clients. And Jerry and I have known each other forever. Jerry's the CFO that if there's €1 left in the bank or 10 million euros left in the bank, he watches over everything, as prudently as you can. And the financials, we're generating revenue. We were doing consultancy 5 years ago. We were making great money, but we moved across the threshold to only sell our own products. That was a difficult challenge for us because, even coming into COVID, we had situations where could we deploy networks, but we managed to. So during the whole of COVID, because it was supply chain, we managed to deploy an entire fleet for the Pacific Ocean. And we're just about to go now and do an extra expansion of that fleet. So again, it's always recurring revenue. It's always, connectivity as a service. And again, the goals are always around recurring revenue and getting that up. On our balance sheet, we are taking most of the debt and converting it as part of this round. It'll be just before you, so you won't be diluted by it. But we're bringing that in, and we've got some great investors, some really successful Irish business people have come in with that particular round. And then, as we've said, our projections are to get to 7 million. And again, as much of that as that's recurring, the better. From a competitive perspective, the part highlighted in green is more important than the other competitors because it's contemporary. Last week, the guys that are out ahead of us, Traxons, they're funded by some of the shipping companies. They're really out there at the forefront. We know them very well. We respect what they're doing. And they've got the bigger system. They've kind of got the refrigerated monitoring system they're trying to repurpose into this. We're always telling people that won't work. You've got to design a product from the ground up. But they're out there and they're deploying their product. They've had to buy another player, a contemporary of ours called Next4. And what they've decided to do, Next4 would be more pop it on a door of the container for one journey. We're not really behind that type of model. From our perspective, it needs to be live all the time. The container needs a device that lasts forever, that never actually comes off, that the energy harvesting keeps it going forever. With power management, we keep it going forever. So we would be advocates of the model that is put a system on a container back to a network that runs it for the entire life cycle, which is typically 12 to 14 years when it comes to the intermodal dry container. As Chris said, the investment round is 350,000 as a minimum. We're talking about a valuation of 4.7 million. That particular company, we don't know what they bought Next4 for, but we would assume probably somewhere between 10 and 15 million. So from a valuation perspective, we obviously think you're getting a really good deal. And then the funds are used for one single purpose. We have our prototypes coming. We've got our customers ready. We're going out trialing and testing. This money is to just do contract manufacturing, to turn on the contract manufacturer and to be able to do the next volume, because our next stage will be thousands of units per customer. Why invest in Net Feasa? We've been there. We know this industry. We've been very slow, careful, and methodical at actually picking out this particular container tracking market. We spend probably a year or two longer than most because we don't want to go into it if it's going to be flooded with competitors that will wipe you out with cheaper products or something. We're generating revenue. We've got a good reputation with our first customers. They like what we do. They're comfortable with what we do. And now, like the Tuesday morning Asian operator of shipping lines, they will be calling them, checking our pedigree, seeing how we've delivered our products and how we've supported that particular opportunity. So that's very helpful. And as we said, it's $14 trillion worth of goods. It's pretty much most of the global economy is going through, the shipping economy is going through these boxes. So it's very important that they get connected properly. We've put in 2 million. So in other words, rather than spend the money from consultancy and from the revenues we've generated over the years, together with our investors and ourselves, we've put the money in, 2 million, into developing this platform. So we're well down the road to being there. And again, you always need a business case. So one of our advisors estimated that by looking through, in detail, Maersk as an example, and Maersk, one of the greatest shipping lines of all time, they estimate that they'll save about 100 million euros a year in costs if they just connect the containers and move away from the very manual systems that have dominated this market forever. So, Chris, thanks.
Yep. Sorry, I thought you got one more slide, so I was just going to say 1 more minute. So that's you're finished up there, Mike. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Chris.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Very strong business, as I'm sure you can see from that deck, and the campaign is live on site. So please, I recommend you go and have a look at that after we've finished the webinar today, and see if it appeals to you. So Mike, thanks very much indeed. Perhaps you can switch your mic off now, and I'll invite Niall on. Niall, are you there? Here he is.
Hi Chris, how are you?
Good to see you. Thanks very much, Niall. So Niall is a qualified chartered accountant, having received his first contract in KPMG, one of the leading accountancy and professional services firms worldwide, obviously. After completing an undergraduate degree in neuroscience at UCD, Niall enrolled in a postgraduate program with KPMG to bring him into the business world. Niall specialised in financial statement audit and has worked closely with the top aircraft leasing companies globally, including GECAS, Goshawk, Oryx, and Nordic Aviation Capital, and several others. Niall concluded his time with KPMG to pursue Wavelength full-time, and his strong drive and ambition for success has fueled this decision, and having the full focus of someone as dynamic and charismatic as Niall on the Wavelength project will greatly bolster its advancement. Wavelength is a new type of social media channel that is creating a fairer, safer, and more rewarding network for its community. The platform is built and is now ready for launch. The business has just won a very prestigious grant from Algorand for $250,000. It's got no debt in the business and is seeking investment to expand its marketing and platform development. The investment is through a safe note and a link on the chat, with a 3 million cap and a 25% discount. And the business is EWS qualifying, meaning that if you put €1,000 in, it will effectively only cost you €600. Wavelength is now live on the site and has already received €220,000 worth of investment and is at 44% of its target. One final thing before Niall gets started. Niall and Wavelength have just got an article in today's Indo written by Adrian Weckler. It's very much worth a quick read, and we'll put a link into that if Fergal can do that, and you can flick into that a little bit later on. Just while I'm on that, actually, by the way, we've had over 100 articles written about the Spark alumni since we launched 3.5 years ago. And if you ever want to have a look at them, you can see them on our press page. And I think Fergal will put a link to that in there as well. Anyway, Niall, you're very welcome to. And if you could get your project, your presentation even up onto the screen, I'll let you get started. So I'll see you on the other side. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Chris. So yeah, thanks to Chris and the Spark team for the opportunity to present Wavelength to everyone today. By way of introduction, I'm Niall O'Reilly, CEO and founder of Wavelength. So what is Wavelength? Wavelength is the new age of social media. Essentially, when we set out about Wavelength, we built our concepts around the current issues that we're facing mainstream social platforms. So as our ideas and our concepts grew, we started to think a little bit more about where the future of social media was heading. With that in mind, we approached the problems and essentially then the solutions from two different angles. So firstly, we really looked at the existing issues that we wanted to address with current mainstream social platforms. And these were things around verification, governance and moderation, and then the quality, I suppose, of the content that people are seeing on social media, but also the data and everything to do with governance of data on the platform. So speaking around the thing of verification, so as Chris pointed out at the start, we are going to be implementing a thing called KYC, which is Know Your Customer. And essentially, these are banking standard protocols that we'll be doing with a third party that essentially verifies everyone on the platform as a real human being. So what we're looking to do is eliminate, I guess, the problems that mainstream socials have today, which is things like trolling, bullying, bad actors, duplicate accounts, misinformation, and the spread of things like hate speech, things like that. So we truly believe that the verification element of this platform is something that users, even on mainstream social platforms today, are really looking to implement onto their platform, but just can't do so because they're kind of gone too far down the road with the amount of users that they can't really, I guess, take a retrospective effect on this. So implementing this verification really from our side of things was to eliminate the problems that were existing on the mainstream socials today, but also other things such as governance and moderation. So currently the mainstream socials moderate this from a higher power, which essentially means that the owners and Facebook itself moderate the content that people see on the platform. But again, things like censorship and other issues that are kind of becoming a little bit more mainstream today of what are these issues really comes down to moderation coming from the platform itself. So something that we want to actually implement on the platform is to allow the community to self-govern and to self-moderate the platform for itself, which means that it will lead to a community and a space that the users really drive on and a space that they really want, because at the end of the day, we're all about building communities, but communities only want to be a part of a community that they feel, I guess, number one, safe in, but is truly theirs. And I'll speak to just how it will be truly theirs in a little bit more. Then I guess thirdly, we're looking at the quality. So what we want to implement really and truly is quality on this platform. So what we're doing here in this instance is implementing a feature that's known as really just a one post a day, one share a day. So what we're doing is we're taking away the newsfeed element of people sinking time in, and we've all been there before. We've either had our phones out on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, and we're mindlessly scrolling through content that really isn't that meaningful. So by implementing these types of features, it's a novel and it's a unique way of doing things differently. But also things like data. Data is something that we are obviously very we take very seriously on Wavelength. So with that in mind, we won't be actually storing any of the data in centralized data structures, and also any of the third-party KYC data that's collected on individuals will simply be kept with the third party, and we won't have any anything to do with that data on the platform. Now, these were the existing issues that were facing mainstream socials that we thought, okay, let's spend some time here to really think about how we can implement solutions to these. But then in kind of the meantime, as we were forming these concepts, really the idea about the evolution of the internet kind of came to mind. So with that in mind, it's worth just giving a little bit of an explainer of what the evolution of the internet means. So what's currently happening, or there's such an evolution, or you could even call it a revolution that's happening right now, is really around the next iteration of the internet, which is kind of deemed the term Web 3.0. So for those familiar with that, that's absolutely fantastic. For those that aren't, I would encourage anyone that doesn't understand what Web 3.0 means to either look it up on our socials or on our website, or just to type it into Google. But really, these are things that I guess involve the terms such as blockchain or cryptocurrency, value share and communities and self-moderation, things like that really is what's happening in the next evolution of the internet. What we currently have really are these big tech companies that essentially run and I guess organize and govern the socials that we currently use today. When we think of the internet, it's relative to us all. It'll be always relative to us all as technology kind of grows and grows. So it's important for us to think about, well, where are we today and where will we be in 10 years time when it specifically comes to the internet? And this evolution that's starting to occur is a thing called Web 3.0. So really what Web 3.0 in the context of a social media platform means is value share. It also means socializing and earning, and also really it comes down to the value of its communities. So when I really speak to value share, what we're actually implementing on Wavelength will be our own cryptocurrency and our own token. And I'll speak to that briefly in another while. But what that entitles users really to do is to earn as they socialize. So what we want to do is create a value structure for all the users on Wavelength, whereby by using the platform, by positively contributing to the platform, and really by socializing and utilizing this Wavelength social media, that they are getting something in return from that, whether it's through our tokens, which 70% of our tokens will be assigned to the social media platform, but also we'll be assigning about 45% of the platform's profits to be distributed back to the community too. So this is not like your normal Web 2.0 model, whereby the likes of Facebook and the shareholders that sit at the top really gather all the value when essentially the user is the product. What we want to flip that on its head is and say, right, let's set up a fundamental infrastructure here for users to form their own communities, to really form their own network, and to be valued in that network through monetization or by socializing to earn, essentially. So we've really thought about this in the context of, like I said, the evolution of the internet and what the next iteration of that will be. So we've come at it from a standpoint of what can we fix with what's wrong with current social medias today, but also we're setting up our stall for the future with really this thing about the evolution of the internet, or the term that's been, I guess, that's been coined on this is really Web 3.0. So if I just come on then to the value and really the value proposition, what we want to do is to build out a platform that's user-centric, it's rewarding, and essentially it's owned and governed by its user base. So as opposed to us sitting at the top tier and really driving the direction of this, we want this to be the user base that actually does this. It's all about building communities and the value of communities. And when we speak to that, really, we're talking about building atomic networks, creating an authentic environment, but also really understanding the networking effects of social media platforms and how they build from the ground up. Any of these social media platforms that have started on ground zero and built their way to the size that they are today has come from these things called atomic networks that we're really focused in on, in providing a space that's going to be relevant and, you know, I guess, useful for them. So when we speak to these atomic networks, really what we're talking about are groups of people that find a niche space to interact and, you know, be within this environment, let's say. But also that's what we're doing from the verification side of things, that our entire user base will be real people. So consider for a second a social media platform that doesn't have trolling, that doesn't have bullying, that doesn't have duplicate accounts, or doesn't have bad actors. Consider that, and then on top of that, understand what you want to do with the environment, or think about the environment that you want to create. Really, that comes down to the actual atomic networks that we're building from the ground up. So this is the vision that we have for Wavelength, but ultimately it's about building a fully autonomous social platform backed by a fully verified user base. And really that's what I guess the value proposition that is in Wavelength. And it's something that's not out there today, which is really important to understand too. So speaking a little bit to the traction and validation of our concept. So we would have started this project roughly about nine months ago, and this was just myself on my own as the founder and CEO. And essentially we built out our socials and kind of drove a little bit of marketing to try and get a little bit of I guess traction around our concepts or ideas from the start. And we roughly have about 11,000 people now that either follow us or have actually got themselves involved in our first token, which I'll speak about now. So when I spoke above about Web 3.0, what I'm speaking about in an umbrella term really under that is things around tokens, things around cryptocurrencies, and things around rewards. So the form of rewards that I guess the platform will undertake will be through our own cryptocurrency, which we would have actually launched a beta version of about approximately 6 months back. Now, this was with the idea that, okay, we were going to be primarily a cryptocurrency and we will build a social media platform after. At the time, it was a little bit of a funny one that usually one comes after the other, but it's usually the social media platform that you build out first. But again, for us, it turned out to be massive validation for what we were doing. In approximately 3 months, we drove revenues of close to $50,000, and we reached an all-time market capitalization high of 4.2 million, which was extraordinary considering really that it was a one-member team and the idea was really just out there at the time. It was only concepts and ideas, but it seemed that there was people that really thought the idea and the concept, I guess, was validated in that first instance. Forward on just a month ago when we actually reached out to Algorand to build on their existing blockchain. So when I speak again to Web 3.0, our platform will be completely autonomous. So Wavelength is completely decentralized, which means that it's governed essentially by itself. So what we need to do is we need to find an existing blockchain or protocol on which Wavelength will be built on top of. Now, there are a number of these that are out there. If you're familiar with cryptocurrencies, it could be Ethereum, or it could be Binance. These are kind of things that you might be familiar with. But for those that aren't, essentially what it is building on, essentially it's a base layer infrastructure on which we will build Wavelength on top of. And this comes down to what we actually got, which was Algorand. We reached out to them, we applied for a grant, and we were one of the thousands of successful candidates that actually was a recipient of this grant for $250,000, which was extremely, extremely exciting on our side of things to see that they seen us as a high potential project. So this, I guess, now opens up to their network, to their developers, to future investment as well, which is really exciting. So finally, I guess it's really around why invest in Wavelength. So the main thing really that we see the true value in is the team that we've actually built. So this started off with just myself, and then I suppose we expanded the team as we went along here. But when we did reach out to some developers, all of which are actually based in the US, they had actually come around to us and had said that really they wanted to invest in the idea, which was, you know, hugely exciting on our side of things. But we do have people that are involved, that are invested in us. They see the huge potential of where this Web 3.0 movement is really going. And just to speak, I suppose, to our lead blockchain engineer, who has extensive experience in Silicon Valley and the likes, he has actually previously sold software to what we know today as being Snapchat Maps, which is, again, extremely exciting, which he has, I guess, experience in the social media domain, which is really great too. So as Chris mentioned, the investment today is for 300,000 euro. It's a safe note with a cap of 3 million and a discount of 25%. We are EIS qualifying, again, which allows investors to obtain the income tax relief on the investments made in Wavelength of up to 40%, which again we see as a real incentive for investors to get involved. The funds will be utilized to expand on our team with the development of the product, but also in the growth and the head of growth area that we want to actually expand, because at the end of the day, it's all about networking effects, and we want to get, you know, users involved in this. We want to be very, you know, specific in terms of the atomic networks that we're identifying that will really come down to the stickiness and the retention of people on the platform. But really, it's using those funds to I guess bolster ourselves and get more team members involved. So again, just to kind of conclude on this, we really believe that everything that encapsulates Web 3.0 and also the value share that we're really pushing for Wavelength is early in its adoption. And this is why we believe that investing now in Wavelength essentially is an investment for the future of technology, but also the future of social media and the internet. So given the value sharing nature of Wavelength, doing our first equity fundraise via crowdfunding and getting more people involved kind of seem most fitting. So essentially this was Wavelength. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation, and I will hand you back now to Chris. So thanks for listening.
No, thank you very much indeed. Very exciting times ahead, I think, for Wavelength. So thanks very much for that. So what I'll do now is get Lee and Sean to put their cameras on, if I can, please. And I'll do a quick intro with you guys. This is Lee, and Sean is somewhere coming on board. Here he is. Sean was the founder and CEO of Gotcha Mobility before he started Frog, one of the 5 largest shared mobility companies in the United States. Gotcha was sold to a public traded company in 2019. Prior to selling, Gotcha had won and secured over 100 permits to operate in the US cities and universities, and had over 10,000 assets under management. Sean is an advisor to a number of startup businesses, both in Europe and in the US, and is a founder member of EFO Ventures, which is an investment fund for investing in early stage businesses. Sean has a BSc in entrepreneurial studies from Florida State University, and Sean is a native of the US, but now resides up in Donegal. Lee is from Dublin and previously founded an e-scooter company called Smart Scooter, which was then acquired by Frog, which is how the business has scaled so quickly. Frog Mobility is already operating in 8 markets and has a plan to increase this to over 75 in the next 3 years. The business is currently generating revenues and is site level cash flow positive, and is on track to have an ARR of over 400,000 euros this year. Frog is now live on the site and has already received over 94,000 of investment and is at 27% of its target. It's an EIS company. The pre-money valuation is 7 million, which of course with the EIS brings it to an effective valuation of 4.2 million. So Lee, Sean, you're both very welcome. You've already started your presentation there, so I'll let you fly into that and I'll see you in a few minutes. So where you go, guys.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks for having us. I see we're a bit tight on time, so I'll dive right in. I'm Lee Roche, co-founder and CEO of Frog Mobility, Ireland's fastest growing micromobility operator. So a little bit about Frog. Frog partners with communities worldwide to provide a sustainable form of public transport. We design and deploy high quality electric mobility devices to reduce dependence on gas powered vehicles. Our vision is straightforward: to move people around in a more safe and sustainable way. So you might ask, what is the problem worth solving? For us, the big problems are climate change and congestion. We at Frog believe shared micromobility can help with both. So we believe the solution is shared micromobility devices for urban travel. With Frog's user-friendly app, it's easy to engage, find a device at a convenient location, and off you go. Also, a big part of this is to partner with local municipalities and focus on local operations to drive profitability. It's important today for the investors to know, and you guys to know, that although it's great and we're loving our mission, tackling climate change and traffic congestion, it's important for the investors to know that the playing field is huge. It's estimated to be 250 billion euros right now and growing, and Frog is well placed in this industry.
Thank you. As Chris mentioned, my name's Sean Flood. I'm an original investor and co-founder of Frog Mobility. Very excited to bring Frog throughout Europe after spending 13 years in the mobility industry in the US. And as Chris mentioned, scaling and growing Gotcha to a public exit in 2019. Very excited to move over to Ireland to partner with Lee and the other team members to become the largest and fastest growing shared mobility company here in Ireland. Our business model is simple and straightforward. We generate revenue through ridership and trips through shared mobility devices. We're currently generating revenue and cash flow positive at the site level economics, which is very important as you're scaling a shared mobility business. The technology operates through a branded app that's proprietary, that allows us to customize and securely process payments from our riders across the country. Our business model allows pay-as-you-go or continued memberships. That flexibility is important for riders because this is true transportation. People look at scooters and e-bikes as maybe a fun way to get around, which it is, but what Frog really focuses on is being a part of the community and being true transportation. So having payment plans and technology that allow you to do that are very important. Frog's real secret sauce is focused on localized operations, which allows us to scale and slow down operations based on demand. That generates local site level profitability. Instead of being able to keep one level of operation year round, our operations team is able to scale that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I'm very excited about, during COVID, the past 12 months, even while we were under restrictions, the Frog team was able to go live in 8 different cities in 2 different countries, in Poland and Portugal. And during that time, to create an annual run rate of over 400,000 euros. We're excited to be past that time, like I think a lot of people are, but we were really able to prove that during a very, very difficult time where people were not able to go out and about as much as we would have liked, that people were still utilizing our devices as part of their daily commute, and we're able to build a big and profitable business. Our management team is very excited about some announcements that we're going to be making in the next week in Ireland and throughout Europe that involve some very exciting partnerships. Those include a partnership with a US-based technology company called Hello Llama. This is going to be cutting-edge computer vision AI technology built directly onto our scooters and bikes. That is going to be a key differentiator between Frog and our other competitors. We're going to be able to see things like if a rider is on a sidewalk or in the street and change that behavior. Are they wearing a helmet or are they not? And be able to affect that helmet or affect that decision. Are there 2 people riding on a scooter instead of 1? A big safety issue, especially in countries like Ireland that look to bring scooters and other e-mobility back to the country. So look out for some exciting announcements around our partnership with Llama. Element is our hardware provider. They built purpose-built mobility devices. So Lee, Pedro, and our team have worked directly with their management team to design scooters and e-bikes that fit not only our needs, but more important, the needs of the consumers in each of our different markets. Movatic is our software platform. After growing and scaling the business in the US, I realized that one of the largest expenses was around building an in-house technology team. So after years of working with Movatic, the Frog team decided to partner. It allows us to customize the app and the needs for each one of our markets in real time without having to have the burden of a full-time engineering team. So it's allowed us to be profitable. It'll allow us to scale quickly. And as I'll talk about in a minute, it'll allow us to exit this market in a significantly easier fashion. We're also announcing a new partnership with JumpWatts. This is revolutionary. So on our devices, we'll be able to mount cutting edge teleoperations technology. So you think about the expenses of operating any business, it's the personnel needed, and shared mobility is no different. You have a lot of operators out in the field needing to move scooters and bikes from one location to another. Frog's partnership with JumpWatts is going to allow us to pilot technology that'll allow us to remotely move a scooter from one location to another so that it's in the right place for a customer at the right time without having to have people run around and move those. So very, very excited about the technology. Our sales and marketing strategy is simple. We spent the past year standing up 8 different markets, focused on operations and focused on profitability. This next quarter, we're going to begin a launch of 10 new European markets, in addition to the 8 that we're already live in. We focus on mid-sized cities, and our goal over the next 3 years is to deploy in 75 European markets, hopefully including Ireland. Key drivers around our success are the asset class. Frog today has 2,200 e-scooters in our fleet, and we plan on growing that to over 11,000 in the next 3 years, a combination of e-bikes and e-scooters. As I've spoken about a little bit, it's a team that makes the big difference. Our team that worked very hard in the US to understand the industry, understand what worked and what didn't work, has now joined forces on the Frog team. Dave and I have spent a combined 15 years in the mobility industry, working with operators, working with partners to build a big business. And we've put together a really great team that focuses on all the key components of that, the PR and marketing standpoint, the design, the public relations, working with municipalities. And you've gotten to know Lee just a little bit, but Lee and Pedro have put together a really great operating management team focused both here in Ireland and in Portugal, which was one of our key expansion markets for 2022. Quick summary, in the past year during COVID, we have created a business that has 400,000 euros in ARR. We are happy to say we have no debt on our balance sheet, and we're building a business that will do 2.5 million euros in revenue in 2022. And the promoters of this business have already invested 200,000 euros.
Cheers, Sean, thanks for that. So the question is, what does it take to be successful in this industry? Well, we have 4 main components: securing permits, local operations, software and hardware. So let's touch on software and hardware for a couple of minutes. Our software communicates with our scooters in real time, allowing us to track carbon emissions saved, rides, miles, and rider behaviors. It also allows us to geofence areas such as no scoot zones, slow zones, virtual parking bays, all needed for partnerships with municipality, and again, great for that rider experience. And we all know these days, even the lads before me, you know, everything is done now through smartphones. It's just the way life is, and Frog is no different. So our customer app is easy to use. It's available in multiple languages. It allows the riders to rent, ride, and return. It's as simple as that. Our hardware, this is my baby. This is where I get excited. So we'll focus closely on the X10 for this because we haven't got much time. So we work closely with Element to design this product. I personally can't wait to deploy this product in Ireland this year. We're gonna scale it through some European cities as well. We've already demoed this product to Irish councils, TDs, the RSA. We've used it in their training program up and down Dublin in the last 6 months, and everybody has got great feedback. It's an awesome product. And it's the world's first e-scooter with indicators that activate when the scooter leans left or leans right, so the rider's about to come out. If there's a traffic on by, it's about to come out, the traffic light says, again, giving pedestrians and drivers that extra visibility. It also has that lower tapered deck for that low sense of gravity, again, better rider experience, and it has a wider tailored deck, you know, so some guys might like to ride with their feet in front of each other, or some people might like to ride with their feet side by side. Again, covers all bases. And again, what Sean touched on earlier with LAM, our built-in computer vision. So what we really wanted to get across today is that Frog is not just another e-scooter company. We understand that e-scooters are going to be a huge part of public transport, but they're not the silver bullet all along. They're just not. So we take a multimodal approach, because every city needs a different approach. Just this morning, what's exciting for us, and it's probably exciting for you guys as investors, is we have our operation in Lisbon with the scooters active at the moment. In the second quarter of this year, we're now going to add e-bikes to that operation. So that's huge news for us. The competition. Yes, there is competition. Like any other business competition, we like to break it down into two categories: the big players and the regional players, we'll call them. The big players are your Voyas, your Tiers, your Lions, and then the regional players are Zip, Z-Wings, and Blinky. What sets us apart from these guys? Our hardware and our software is on point, what we just touched on. For me, the experience in the team, our team has over 100 permits secured. Just to put that into perspective, if we put all those regional players together, they would not have 100 permits secured between them. Our team is vastly experienced. And then our business model, as Sean touched on earlier, focusing on local operations to drive profitability at site level.
Thanks, Lee. So we're excited to partner with Spark and really hoping to bring local partners into the company as we grow and scale Frog. We're raising 350,000 euros at a pre-money valuation of 7 million euros. Frog is EIS qualified, allowing our investors to take advantage of the 40% tax rebate and reducing our company valuation to 4.2 million. The funds will be used for expansion. We've built a great corporate team. We've built a local business model that is easily scalable. We're building relationships with each of our municipalities, and we're now ready to deploy excess product into these different markets to continue to build on our profitable business model. Exit strategy. As people invest, we're all very focused on how do we make sure that there's a return at the end of the day. As we looked at the US market and what happened as shared mobility grew, in a period of time, there was consolidation. That consolidation took the form of large players going after regional players who were successful navigating mid-sized markets. Frog is on a very similar trajectory. We do not go head-to-head in huge markets with 10, 12 different operators. We focus on exclusive or semi-exclusive markets. We focus on markets where we become a part of the fabric of that community. And we focus on growth that's profitable. So as we build over the next 2 to 3 years and get to 75 plus markets, we feel that that business enterprise will be very attractive to the larger players who would rather acquire and roll in a company like Frog. Why should you invest in Frog? I think we've built the best management team in the industry who's laser focused on profitable scaled growth. We feel that we could easily achieve over 75 markets in the European market in the next 3 years. If you look at climate change and the consumer behavior that's driving from that, now is the time. Shared mobility is here to stay. Vehicles, electric vehicles in particular, are the new future and how people are going to navigate our cities across Europe. That market is massive. It's 250 billion euros and growing daily. During COVID, the Frog team launched 8 markets and generated an ARR of over 400,000 euros. We're excited to partner with Spark. The real benefit is that investors can invest as little as 100 euros, and we really hope to see everybody join the Frog team.
Cheers, Sean. Okay, from the team, first of all, thanks to Spark for having us. From Sean, the team, myself, we thank you guys for taking the time out to learn from Frog today. We've assembled a great team here in Ireland. We're excited about our expansion across Europe. personally excited about launching in Ireland. All that being said, thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Lee. Thank you very much, Sean. Very great presentation, and thanks very much for that. So, guys, thank you very much for your participation today, and for all of the people on the call today. Thanks very much for coming along. All the campaigns are live on site now, and we're very happy to have them there. You've heard from all the principals, and I think you'll agree that they're all worth some very serious consideration for investment. Very strong teams, very strong sectors that they're in, and very strong products that they have. So we've already got a number of follow-up meetings with the investors for the businesses that we're showcasing today. And if you yourself would like to have a one-to-one with them, then please let us know, and we will be very happy to facilitate that as well. We hope to also have our first face-to-face in-person meetup again at some stage soon. We're looking to do that in March, so we're looking forward very much to that. I think it'll be very popular, so everyone's trying to very much looking forward to getting out and about. So it'll be a first come first serve for that. So do watch out for that, please, as well. So I think that's it for today, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And thank you very much for your time. See you again. Bye bye.